Hi everyone, welcome to another In Focus video where today we're going to be looking at the Raro Boda washed Ethiopian filter coffee that we're currently roasting. Explain a little bit about how the coffee is produced, how we sourced it and how we roasted it, and ultimately what flavours we're going to get in the cup when we brew it. So this coffee comes from Ethiopia's Guji zone, more specifically a small woreda called Uraga. Uraga is the sort of name of the bigger town within which is Raro Boda, which is a small kabele. These are all the terms for sort of a small commune or a small town in Ethiopia. So Raro Boda is the name of the wet mill named for the kabele it's within, and that's typically where the smallhold coffee farmers who contribute their cherries to this lot are living. They're living in the Raro Boda kabele. It's quite tricky sometimes to really get your head around the geography of Ethiopia and the way everything fits together. And there are so many parties at play, it can be very, very confusing. However, with working with Tropic, who in turn are working with a company called Snap Coffees, we've got really, really great information about these coffees that we've decided to buy this year. So Snap Coffees are a relatively new company. From about 2008 they were established, typically working in electronics, but they've branched into specialty coffee. And they operate several washing stations across various regions within Ethiopia. One of them is the Raro Boda wet mill, where this coffee is being produced, from about 430 contributing smallhold coffee farmers. And they're working in a sort of semi-forest system, which means near to their homes there is forest with coffee in it, which they are actively pruning and taking steps to ensure it's producing good fruit, and then going and collecting that to deliver to the wet mill. Within that system, they actually do know a lot of what the varieties are. When we used to buy Ethiopian coffees, when we first started roasting, you would always see the terms native heirloom or similar on the back of a bag. And that was sort of a catch-all umbrella for we kind of don't know. There's so many different varieties that have come about naturally within Ethiopia, the birthplace of coffee, but also through farmers' own initiative from selecting seeds from particularly hardy or particularly productive plants. These sort of improved landrace selections come about. So there's a bit of a mixture here of what's going on. There are 3 local named varieties that we know are in here, which are Wolisho, Dega and Kurume. But then also there are 2 JARC identified varieties, and that's the Jimma Agricultural Research Centre. And in the 70s, in 1974, there were 2 varieties developed, which have just been catalogued 110 and 112. So 74 for the year, 110 and 112 are the names of these varieties, both chosen for their resistance to coffee berry disease and general hardiness and production, and being sort of compact trees, which are really, really nice to plant and work on. So we know 5 of the varieties that make up the majority of this lot. I'm sure there are others at play as well, but those are the typical ones going in here. As well as Raro Boda wet mill, Snap Coffees also own and operate a washing station called Danche in Chelabesa, and they own one called Refiza, which is in Nensebo region. And these are other washing stations that we've actually bought coffees from this year as well. When we first tasted all of those samples, we earmarked the Raro Boda as the one we wanted to release first of the 3. Typically for us, there are certain practices that are undertaken with Ethiopian coffees that mean they have an incredibly long lifespan. From the time they were picked to the time we're still roasting them and really enjoying them, you can have like a year pass and really see no degradation or suffering in the green coffee's flavour. Which you would definitely find in other origins and other particularly processing and drying practices. So at Raro Boda wet mill, as well as some of the other ones that Snap operate, they're building schools and supplying those schools with electronics from their other arm of their business, so they're providing computers and the like, and intending to build healthcare clinics as well as improve the access by roads. So they have a sort of very admirable social arm to their coffee business, as well as quality driven in terms of what they can produce in the cup. So once the smallholder coffee farmers deliver their cherries to Raro Boda wet mill, they are first depulped, and then they're loaded into recently retiled fermentation tanks. And I stressed retiled because that's an interesting step to take to improve quality, because they're very easy to clean, and maybe they will also help to control the temperature, because they're lining a tank in a sort of more consistent medium than just a porous concrete. So they've taken steps to improve the processing by investing in this kind of infrastructure. So really nice depulping machine, really nice tanks, and typically they will then add water to cover the depulped coffee seeds and leave it for about 48 hours. So it's a really long wet fermentation that's going on here. But after that stage, they'll be passing through grading channels whilst being scrubbed. So that's both cleaning off the broken down mucilage, but also through the density of the seeds, it's grading them by keeping the very, very dense, heavy seeds into the premium lots and anything that floats being siphoned off into lower grade lots. The coffee is then sun-dried on raised beds, and they stress that they keep the layers about 2 centimeters high, so it's very, very even and consistent and uniform and controlled. And all of those things are really, really telling when you have a coffee that's so reliable. It is in a stable state. It has really, really good level of moisture and water activity, but ultimately it means that the flavour doesn't change so much over time. You have a really, really consistent, reliable product to work with in volume as well. So it's really, really impressive work being done there. Once we receive the coffee in Viner Street and we do our first test roast, with Ethiopian coffees, I'm a big fan of them being kept quite light so that you can really show off what makes them so special, which is that they're incredibly aromatic and have lovely acidity to them. So typically you'll see citrus and jasmine as very, very typical washed Ethiopian coffee traits. And I definitely get some of those characteristics here. But the type of florals I think is maybe straying away from jasmine to something a bit more rose or geranium-like. It's a little more perfumed than like the sweet scent of jasmine. And as well as that citrus flavour, there's definitely a sort of lemon oil character to me. But I get a lot more tropical fruit in this, a lot more fresh lychee and guava. So those kind of more perfumed sweet fruits. It's not a high pointed citric acidity, it's very ripe and more tropical to me than bright and citrusy. Now that it's cooling down a little bit, I can really get a handle on what kind of sweetness there is in the cup here as well. And it's not too refined. There's quite a caramelly tone to it. It's not just plain white sugar kind of sweetness or fructose. There's very much a caramelly tone running through it, which I find really enjoyable to complement those luscious tropical fruits and the really, really delicate floral aromas that are there too. So that combination of very, very high altitudes, you know, the smallholders delivering cherries to Raro Boda are working between 1950 and 2,300 meters. So very, very high altitude. And the wet mill itself is elevated so high and they undergo such slow processing that all of the work being done to create the flavours in this cup has happened very slowly, resulting in something very concentrated and very complex. And I think that's also why some of these coffees take a long time to open up and become expressive, and then subsequently take a long time to fade and sort of start to lose some of their characteristics. So right now for me this is tasting as it should. It's incredibly open and elegant and complex. The coffees from Danche and Rafisa that we also have coming through Snap Coffee, we are actually waiting on a little bit so that they're almost in a conditioning phase, getting ready and opening up, and they will become espresso coffees for us a bit later in the year. And maybe we will do a little bit of filter roasting on them as well, just to see how great they are as filter coffee as well. One of the greatest things is when you first get Ethiopian coffees back on your menu. And for us it's July, and for us it's a little early to do so. With this we would normally be waiting another month or two before doing filter roasting on Ethiopian coffees. But I'm very glad we have them now because it's really warm outside and we have beautiful fruity floral coffee to complement the hot weather because it's so refreshing and sort of delicate and pretty. And it's just a great time for me to be drinking Ethiopian coffees. So I'm thoroughly enjoying this lot from Raro Boda Wet Mill. Roasted relatively lightly for us. It's a lightly developed coffee. It's trying to keep all of that sweetness and brightness and floral character without going too heavy into caramel tones or spice tones or chocolate. So it's kept on the lighter side for sure. So that's the Raro Boda filter coffee from Workshop Coffee. Beautifully processed lot from Snap Coffees in Oromia in Guji zone. And for me it's a really, really floral, tropical cup, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you very much.